Miles from shore, alone in an ice fishing hut during a snowstorm, he woke to something knocking at the door. Then the walls started pounding from every side, and by morning, the snow outside held tracks that made even less sense than the night before.
What's that? You want to be scared? Come with me. You will experience tales of horror, ghosts, and death. It is not recommended for the weak at heart. Listen in the dark. It's more fun that way. This is Weekly Spooky.
Hello, my spookies. It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for a little spooky in your weekly. And tonight we have a brand new author making his Weekly Spooky debut, Gary D. up in Toronto. But before we get to that, I want to mention I'll be making some appearances around Ohio in case you want to meet me in person, although I'm not as scary in real life. I'll be at the Cinema Wasteland Convention in Cleveland, Ohio, April 10th through 12th. You can do a little Googling to find the place, but I'll be there all weekend. Come by and say hi, maybe even buy a movie. That'd be nice. And the following weekend, on April 18th and 19th, I'll be at the Oddities and Curiosities Expo in Columbus, Ohio. I'll be a guest of Terror Vision Records and Graveface Records. And by the way, several of you spookies actually discovered this show because you met me at the Oddities and Curiosities Expo. It's a place just maggoty with spookies, so if you get a chance, please stop on by. Say hey, I'd love to see you. And if it's your first time here with us at Weekly Spooky, make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcasting app because there'll be something very scary here waiting for you on Friday, and a deep dive into our vault of nearly 400 episodes on Saturday. And if you've been a listener for a while and love what we're doing, remember, you can go to weeklyspooky.com and support us for as little as $1 a month and get 2 bonus episodes for your trouble. But now, as for tonight, there are some sounds that should never reach you when you're completely alone. Not when you're trapped inside a tiny shack on a frozen lake. Not when the wind is howling, the snow is piling up, and the nearest safe place is miles away. Because if something knocks on your door out there in the middle of the night, you really have to wonder what could possibly be standing on the other side. And do you really want to find out? Knock Knock by Gary D. up in Ontario. Hi there. My name's Gary, and I'm located in Ontario, Canada. And I've been an avid fisherman as well as salesman of various different things for many years now. And with that being said, that doesn't mean that I'm now going to try to sell you on this story that I'm about to tell you, as I'm sure that after hearing it, there'll likely be a few of you who will tell me that you're not buying what I'm selling. Hey, that's totally okay and fine by me, 'cause in the end, all that really matters is that I know that it happened, and I'm the one still having to deal with the after effects. And as you're gonna find out shortly, it's not like I'm claiming to have seen a 10-foot-tall, fire-breathing, 3-headed demon with glowing red eyes and antlers sprouting out from the sides of its head. But what I did experience that night was every bit as freaky, bizarre, and disturbing. And yes, it scared the crap out of me. Bottom line being that some experiences are just far, far stranger than others, and this is definitely one of them. So, without further ado, let's get into my story. Back when I was a teenager and pretty much throughout my 20s and 30s, I was quite the avid fisherman. I fished throughout the spring, summer, and fall, but also did my fair share of fishing through the ice during winter. Over the years, I rented ice fishing huts on many different frozen lakes all across Ontario, including some with names like Temagami, Nipissing, Jumping Caribou, Cross, and Simcoe. And to be honest with you, it was really more about the journey than it was about the destination. There was just something about sitting all alone in a remote location somewhere and then being forced to deal with nothing but your own thoughts that I found kind of therapeutic. And if I caught fish, which I usually did, that was secondary and a bonus or cherry on top. And as luck would have it, it was late one night, on one of these midwinter ice fishing excursions, when the only frigid ice water flowing wasn't located just below the ice under my feet, but was also trickling down the center of my spine. I'd rented a 6x6 by 6 foot tall at its highest peak fish hut, also known as an ice hut or ice shanty from a small-time hut rental operator, located on a sizable lake up here in Ontario. This guy, Tyler, had 4 of his huts set up in the shallows for those fishermen targeting northern pike and yellow perch. And then I think there were another 4 huts located about 5 miles out, in about 60 to 70 feet of water for those wanting to catch the deeper dwelling lake trout and whitefish. With regards to the fish hut itself, it had a good-sized propane tank strapped and mounted firmly to the outside wall, with copper piping feeding it into the hut, then connecting to a small heater which was there to keep me warm. So basically there to potentially keep me from freezing to death. I gotta say, the accommodation was pretty crappy, with there just being 2 wide and very hard wooden planks, one located on each side, which were covered with a very thin and barely padded kind of cheap pleather material, which I'm guessing was there to make it waterproof. And last but not least, of course, there was a large exposed hole which had been drilled in the ice right between the 2 benches. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. Yes, it was uncomfortable as hell, especially if you're going to be sitting there in that same damn spot for over 14 hours straight. Shit, that's longer than it takes to fly the 5,000 miles from JFK in New York to Honolulu, Hawaii. Anyway, on this particular ice fishing trip, I was going to be fishing all alone, and on top of that, I was going to be pulling an all-nighter. That meant being dropped off at my hut by snowmobile at around 4:30 or so in the afternoon, and then not being picked up again until about 7 the next morning. Yeah, I know. Some of you are probably rolling your eyes right now as you're sitting in your car, a bus, the subway, a plane, or a train, or maybe even just sitting in your favorite chair at home or laying in bed. You're probably thinking out loud, "Are you freaking out of your mind, dude? Why the hell would you even do that?" Actually, it's just another human's idea of having fun. But you won't find me out there bungee jumping, hang gliding, or climbing a mountain just because it's there. We all have our vices, hobbies, and addictions, and this just happens to be mine. So, once I got dropped off at my hut, Tyler then double-checked the propane tank to make sure it was full, and he also checked my heater, just to ensure that it was working. He then loaded me up with a bucket of live minnows to use as bait, wished me luck, jumped back on his snowmobile, and then headed back to shore. What he did tell me, though, just before leaving, which honestly kind of freaked me out, at least a bit, was that as far as he knew, I was going to be the only one fishing out here in this small cluster of deep water fish huts tonight. So I would be truly out here, all alone. I shut the door and slid the bolt across to lock it, and then got down to business getting all my gear ready for fishing. as I heard the sound of Tyler's snowmobile getting quieter and quieter as he headed back into shore. Once I settled in, over the next few hours I caught a few fish, ate a sandwich, had a drink, not alcoholic, and then just kinda laid back to try and get some sleep. And over time, I could hear the wind really picking up outside, blowing stronger and stronger. So I popped open the front door for a second and saw that it was snowing really hard. Great. I was now in the middle of a bloody snowstorm. I'd probably nodded off for maybe like an hour and a half or so when I suddenly heard this on the side of the hut, which made me jump straight up out of my sleep. My heart was pounding like a jackhammer. I figured because of the high winds, a random piece of ice probably just slammed up against the wall. And then, a few minutes later, another loud thud. And then, another. And another. It must have happened at least a couple dozen times, and literally sounded like it was hailing golf balls outside. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what the actual fuck? I looked at my watch and saw that it was after midnight. I drank from my bottle of water and then just sat there listening to the howling of the crazy wind outside, which sounded a lot like a runaway freight train would, one that was heading straight to hell. And just as I was starting to fall asleep again, I hear another thud, but this time, it was much, much louder. Just the sheer shock of hearing this super loud bang, I felt like my heart had suddenly hit the ejector seat button and had shot itself up into my throat. I can't remember exactly how long it was quiet after that, meaning only hearing the sound of the raging winds and snowstorm outside, before the shit decided to really hit the fan. At some point, as I sat there just kinda all dopey and half asleep, and amidst all of the howling wind, the weirdest thing happened. Rhythmically and methodically, I heard plain as day a slow and loud knock, knock, knock at my door. What the hell? I look at my watch again and see that it's now like 2:30 in the morning. I yell out, "Hello? Hello? Who is it?" I get no reply. My heart's racing, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm sitting here all alone in the pitch dark in the middle of the night in this tiny little wooden ice shack, like 5 miles out from shore, and in the middle of a frozen lake, and now, suddenly, randomly, there's somebody knocking on my front door. Really? So, not 30 seconds after that first knock, I hear it again. That slow, metronome-like knock, knock, knock. This time, stupidly, I open the door a tiny bit to take a look and scream at the top of my lungs, "Who is it? Who's out there? What do you want?" At this point, my head is spinning, just trying to make sense of what's going on, but then a possible explanation suddenly pops inside my head. I'm thinking, okay, maybe because of this terrible snowstorm and knowing that I'm sitting out here all alone, Tyler got worried about me, so he came out here to pick me up and bring me safely back to shore. Then, suddenly, again, I hear that same rhythmic knock, knock, knock. So I slide the door lock across and open it just a crack and yell, "Tyler, is that you?" No response. Again, "Tyler, is that you out there?" Nothing. And then I realize I don't see a snowmobile anywhere near the front of the hut. So I quickly shut the door and relock it. And now, I've completely lost it. Psychologically, I'm basically shitting my pants in panic mode, wondering what the fuck is actually going on. For maybe the next 20 minutes or so, the knocking stops, and I'm finally able to enjoy some peace. But then, completely out of the blue, I suddenly hear a crazy barrage of very loud, irregular knocking sounds coming from all four walls of my hut. It's like a group of escaped lunatics from a nearby asylum is playing the fist and knuckle bongos together on the walls of my hut at the same time. Come on! I try to look out my tiny plexiglass window, but it's completely fogged over with condensation because of how freezing cold it is outside compared to how warm it is in the hut. I quickly wipe it away, but then I see that the outside of the window is completely caked with snow from that wicked snowstorm going on. The sporadic staccato-type hammering just continues on, and the psychological stress is making me feel like both my heart and head are about to explode. I scream as loud as I possibly can. "Who the fuck are you, and what the fuck do you want? Please, leave me alone!" This does nothing. No response, and the knocking seems to be getting louder. This is so screwed up. None of this makes any sense. The knocking on my hut continues for at least a minute or two, when all of a sudden, just like that, it completely stops. And now all I can hear is the loud, howling wind and my fast, heavy breathing. I sit slouched over with my head in my hands and look down at my watch to see it's now almost 3:30 in the morning. I've barely gotten any sleep, and at this point my heart's racing and pounding in my chest so hard, it's like it's trying to escape my body, or like it's some wild, frenzied animal continuously throwing itself over and over against its bony cage in a desperate attempt to break free. I'm mentally and physically exhausted, and my bloodshot eyes are burning like someone's poured salt into them. I'm done. I'm completely done. I just want it all to stop. I rack my brain, trying to make sense of it all. And then, I think, maybe a group of young punks came out here from shore, bored out of their minds and thinking it'd be fun to scare the shit out of some poor fucker sitting all alone in an ice hut in the middle of the night, in the middle of a frozen lake, and in the middle of a snowstorm. That just didn't make any sense at all, though. Who in their right mind would even do that? And then, for the next couple of hours or so, and right up until sunrise, all I did was just sit there, listening carefully, to see if who or what had gone away, or if they were actually still out there, just patiently waiting for me to crack open the door so that they can then grab me and do who knows what to me. My heart's calmed down a bit by now, but my mouth and eyes are dry as hell, and I have a hard time swallowing. Then, finally, my heart skips a beat when I hear the distant sound of a snowmobile approaching from off in the distance. And the closer it gets, the more the clenched feeling of tightness relaxes in my chest. Eventually, it pulls up right in front of my hut. I hear it shut off, and then I hear the loud crunching of footsteps in the snow as someone approaches my front door. Still leery and not really wanting to open it, I call out through the closed door. "Tyler, is that you?" I hear a snort and a slight chuckle, and then in a kind of mocking voice I hear Tyler reply, Actually no, it's just me, Santa Claus, and I'm wondering if you can help me find my lost reindeer." "What the hell, of course it's me. Who else would it be?" Relieved, I swing open the door and see Tyler standing there. And as I step out, he says, "Holy crap, man. I should have charged you extra. You have some friends out here last night and throw a party or something? What's with all the footprints?" So then I step out a little further from the hut and see that there was deep snow drifted up everywhere outside. But all around the walls of my hut, the snow was completely trampled down. I take a closer look and could see large footprints, but the wind and blowing snow had changed their shape, so there was no way of knowing what made them. The weird thing was that there were absolutely no snowmobile tracks anywhere to be seen, other than those left by Tyler's machine. And the final bizarre icing on the cake was that there were about 10 different individual sets of footprints, all scattered and leading off in completely different directions, out into the lake. To this day, I still think about it from time to time, wondering and trying to figure it out. What really happened that night? If it actually was just a group of bored teenagers out having some fun by scaring the shit out of someone, then why the hell didn't I hear their snowmobiles? And being out in the lake so far as I was, and given the bad snowstorm, does that explanation even make any sense? And why would all of those footprints lead off in different directions? And yes, this was the very last time that I ever went on an overnight fishing trip. A couple years later, after telling my story to an 80-plus-year-old longtime fisherman that I'd met while daytime ice fishing in the same deep water area, and on that very same lake, he set me straight on something. He explained to me how there was a long-standing unsaid and unwritten pact, law, or general understanding amongst all the ice fishermen, that whatever weird shit happens out in the deep water fish huts late at night stays in those god-forsaken deep water ice huts. And that, my spookies, is why if you ever get the urge to spend the night alone in a tiny shack in the middle of a frozen lake, maybe, just maybe, don't. Because the fish are one thing, wind is another, even a blizzard you can explain away, but slow knocking at the door at 2:30 in the morning, footsteps all around the hut, and a whole mess of tracks heading off in every direction by sunrise. No thank you. The fish, they can keep the lake. Big thank you to Gary D up in Ontario. We look forward to featuring many more of his stories so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it, and we'll be back on Friday with a little horror taste test to help you start your weekend on the right foot. And if you love what we're doing here at Weekly Spooky and want to show us some support in a very direct way, head to weeklyspooky.com/join. For as little as $1 a month, you get 2 bonus shows every month and my undying gratitude. And speaking of, I want to say an extra special thank you to our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who pay just a little bit more to hear their names at the end of the show. And they are Kate and Lulu, Jessica Fuller, Mike Eschewey, Jenny Green, Amber Hansford, Karen Ouimet, Jack Kerr, and Craig Cohen. And if you want to join them and hear your name at the end of every episode, just head to weeklyspooky.com/join and sign up at the $15 a month or higher tier. It really does help a lot, keeping the show going, especially as we publish so often every single week all year long to make sure the Halloween vibes never die. Or if they do, they become undead. But now I'm going to get out of here and get back to work because I've got travel ahead of me and lots of shows for you. So for myself, for my executive producers Rob Fields and Bobbletopia.com, my producer Dan Wilder, and my composer Ray Mattis, I'll talk at you next time.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to find your way back next week. But for now, you are safe. Trust me.